start, right? So good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear guests of our conference. First of all, I'm very glad to be here for the second time already. During the second year already, I'm participating in your very interesting event. And let me introduce myself. My name is Uliana Lushch. I am PhD Associate Professor of the Department of Philosophy and Economics from Danilo-Halitsky National Medical University. So I'm representing me and Roman. We both came from Ukraine. And we also introduce the Ukrainian Institute for Happiness Research. So we have launched such a project this year that is a very newborn project, let's say. It has only a few months. And, well, I will try to present the main ideas of our institute and our project right now today. So, first of all, happiness and pursuit of happiness is a thing which is actually propagated in the contemporary culture. Everyone wants to be happy, everyone is searching for different ways to get happiness, but probably pursuit of happiness is a very baffling, maybe the most baffling things, the most baffling thing and the most vague thing. So we are pursuing happiness, but not always we are sure what we are searching for. And at least many people, they still can't understand the aim of this search. We have launched the project which is called Ukrainian Institute for Happiness Research. We have a Facebook page where we actually publish the main results of our research, and right now we are at a very interesting stage when we are searching for partners, searching for people who will engage in different researches dedicated to happiness. And well, one of them, we start a cooperation with University of Perugia in Italy. So that is, well, let's say the first step of our work after the foundation of the institute. When did everything start? Actually, me and Roman, we have written a book called Happy Life Planning. So that was a book which we will, here you have, yes, here is a book that we would like to offer as a gift to the organizers of the conference, probably for your library. And in this book we actually summarized our personal research, our personal experience on happiness. Because definitely I would say that the motivation for writing such a book, for making such a research was definitely personal, right? Because that is a kind of self-developmental thing when you want to find out how to be happy yourself. And generally, eventually, we concluded with philosophical theory, which we elaborated and which we described in our book. So after the book, we understood that there are many people, many scientists all over the world who are working on this problem, that happiness problem is not only an issue of personal self-development, but that is actually a global trend, the trend of social, economic development as well. And for this reason, we decided to make it more than personal, to create an institute for further scientific research. So we definitely invite you for cooperation, and if you will be interested in our research, in any way of cooperation and projects, please contact us by mail and on our Facebook page as well. So the topic that I have chosen today is pursuit of happiness in the popular culture. So pursuit of happiness is actually it became a sense of life, right? So in our days, people are not quite thinking about the meaning of their lives, but they believe that pursuit of happiness is actually the sense of life. But in this case, it becomes a bit ambiguous, right? Because on the one hand, we are not happy because we dedicate our life to pursuit of happiness, to the search of happiness, and we do not know where, when, and how we can get this happiness. So our lives become like meaningless in a sense, right? Definitely that consumerist culture starts to suggest different happiness patterns, meaning different lists of things that we need for happiness. So the consumerist culture tells us that if you purchase this, that, or that product, that it will definitely make you happy. For example, in Ukraine, that is not advertising, that is just for an example. We have such a commercial of the ice cream, and it is mentioned that this ice cream trademark is a manufacturer of happiness. So they produce happiness, meaning that if you do not eat their ice cream, you will never get happiness at all, right? So again, we have in Lviv, in Ternopil, in many different Ukrainian cities, newly built residential quarters, and the slogan of them is "We build happiness." And for example, this residential quarter is called Happy. So imagine that again, you will be happy, you will become happy if you purchase an apartment in this residential quarter. So in this sense, consumerist culture actually gives us a list of things without which, as they claim, we will not be able to become happy. However, no matter how many things you will buy, you will purchase, how many things, how many pleasures you will get, the point is that in psychology we have such a phenomenon as hedonic treadmill. It means that no matter how many pleasures you get, but there is a point at which you lose the sense of satisfaction. So it means that you see that in consumerist culture, people they are actually motivated to earn more money in order to get more things, right? More pleasures, more impressions, and definitely the industry suggests us these services, these products, which are supposed to make us happy. But the point is that when you earn more and more money, when you get more and more pleasure, there is a point when you lose a sense of happiness. There is a point when after these pleasures you get just some emotional gaps and emotional void, meaning you feel pleasure, but that is very short-term pleasure, and after that, well, you see no reason to continue searching for these pleasures. So this hedonic treadmill explains why in rich, developed world countries, people are not happier than in poor countries. Because there is a limit for feeling happy due to money and due to pleasures and services that you can buy for this money. The philosophical basis, the worldview basis of consumerist culture is an ancient theory of happiness which is called hedonism. So happiness in this theory is equal to pleasures, meaning in order to be happy, you need to collect pleasures, right? There is a kind of collection of impressions, happy moments, joy, positive emotions, and so on and so forth that you can get by different ways. However, as I have already mentioned, there are each time people have these emotional gaps, void, and eventually unhappiness. Because after a short-term joy that you get due to this satisfaction given, received by means of industry, of consumerist culture, you actually do not find the sense of life, right? The meaning of life. These short-term pleasures answer the basic fundamental human question, why do I live in the world, right? So who am I and what am I supposed to do in this world? Hedonism also has such a restriction which consists in time gap. So the point is that hedonism is focused on present, because you feel happy, right, in that moment when you have a particular impression, when you feel a particular emotion. But basically it doesn't quite include the past. Because, for example, if last year during the summer you had great vacations with your beloved person, right, and this summer you are alone, you broke up with your beloved person and you have no money to go abroad for having beautiful vacations, definitely you are unhappy, and these memories won't actually quite help you to be happy today, right? Maybe they will even deepen your depression in the present moment. And about future, definitely future is not involved in hedonist pursuit of happiness, because basically it only means pursuit of new and new impressions, but they unfortunately do not last long. And due to these principles, due to this approach to happiness, many people believe that happiness is an illusion, right? So happiness is something which is very difficult to define, and happiness is something which is impossible at all to get, impossible at all to reach. In the popular culture, there are many movies which are dedicated to the pursuit of happiness. And today I would like to talk about a few of them which actually describe hedonistic and eudaimonistic theories of happiness. For example, there was a movie, quite old movie, right, because it was released in 1998, which is called Happiness, exactly. And this film is actually about people who were searching for happiness, but who couldn't become happy, and for whom happiness became quite an illusion. Have you seen this movie? Has anyone seen this movie? So, well, I hope that after today's report you will be interested in it. One of the characters of this movie, this girl on the right, she was a songwriter, unsuccessful songwriter, unsuccessful singer, and I would say that the main idea of the film is represented with the words of the song that she wrote. And I will quote a part of it. She was writing in her song, "It seems that things I wanted in my life I'll never have. And it's no surprise that living only makes me sad. Happiness, where are you? I've searched so long for you. Happiness, what are you? I haven't got a clue." So basically a lot of people are searching for happiness, but they do not have a clue of what they are looking for. One of the characters of this movie was called Bill Maplewood. He was psychiatrist and, by the way, pedophile as well. So an interesting fact, right? That psychiatrist who was supposed to help people to overcome their illnesses, well, he was one of his own patients as well. And for Bill Maplewood, there was no happiness in real life. He was speaking about his dreams, that in his dreams he's doing things that he likes and he feels happy. But when he wakes up, he feels depressed because he lives in reality. So we see that for many people, again, happiness is impossible in the real life. Also, we have this probably main character who was called Joy. That is her song that I was quoting. So imagine a girl with the name Joy, but she was a very depressed person and she wasn't happy in her life. So that is an interesting way in which the screenwriter, scenario writer actually represented this problem, right? This conflict between our desires to be happy and our possibilities. So the life of joy is actually the life of unhappy and unsuccessful relationships. She actually, for her, happiness was actually successful relationships, perfect romantic relationships that she was searching for, but she failed to build in her own real life. So one of the problems of pursuit of happiness is that a person identifies happiness with one particular thing. So here is the problem, because probably that is when you believe that you need something, probably that is not the thing that you need in your life indeed. And if you will identify your whole happiness, your overall well-being with this one particular thing, and you will fail to get it, definitely in this case you will be unhappy forever, right? Because you will see that you are incapable to achieve it. Another unhappy character of this movie is Trish, the elder sister of Joy. So Joy, actually, she was a bit jealous to her elder sister, because her elder sister had a husband, had children, had house, a dog, so a perfect, beautiful life of a housewife. However, that was her husband who was pedophile. So you see the point, right? So for other people, her life seemed to be happy and perfect, but actually, in reality, she didn't have good romantic relationships, healthy romantic relationships with her husband. She had a lot of emotions, negative emotions every day, and again, she wasn't happy at all. Another sister of Joy, that is Helen. Helen was, again, Joy was jealous to Helen because Helen was successful in her career. So again, you see, we can find different things to be jealous in the lives of other people. But Helen herself wasn't happy, despite the fact that she was successful author, that she was rich, and that she had a lot of romantic relationships. But her problem, she says, I do not see meaning in all those relationships. I do not see meaning in my career. Why am I doing it for? What am I doing it for? And she actually found these romantic relationships with beautiful and successful men meaningless, because these were short-term relationships and no depth, right? No emotional satisfaction. But again, her life seemed very happy and very perfect for a loser like Joy. Again. One more thing, which is actually a problem in our pursuit of happiness, that sometimes we believe that if we will get a particular thing, we will be happy. But when we get closer to this thing, when it is reachable already, we understand that we do not want it. For example, there is Helen, and that is her shy neighbor, Ellen. Ellen was in love with Helen for a long time, but he was so shy that he, for a long period of time, he even couldn't say hi to her in the elevator, and he couldn't start relationships with him. But eventually, when he received such an opportunity, when circumstances were giving him this chance, he was afraid to do it. And when already Helen was ready for these relationships, she refused in the very last moment. So you see that it seems to us that for happiness we need something, we suffer because we do not have it, but the point is, do we really worth what we want? And does this thing is really needed, is really necessary for our lives? So again, the question of priorities, right? What kind of priorities do we have in life, and how much courage we have to get those things that we want. Courage and wrong priorities. These are also two huge problems in the pursuit of happiness. And finally, the film ends up with such a family dinner. These are three sisters with their parents who actually split, so they were divorced already. Again, unhappy people, the whole family of unhappy people, probably despite the dog, right? And they were drinking a toast for happiness. Again, an interesting thing, that all of them were unhappy, they failed to get happy in their lives, and they couldn't even imagine what do they want in this life, what do they need for happiness. But still, they were drinking for happiness, because that is a kind of illusionary and attractive thing which is far, far away and which is not reachable. So the only thing we can do is just to have a toast for it, but do nothing in our lives. Another interesting film in the popular culture, which is quite recent film already. If I'm not mistaken, it was released in 2006 or 2009, I believe that 2006. It is called The Happy Film. So The Happy Film is an interesting thing because it is biography which is based on experiment, psychological experiment. Here is actually the main character of this film. His name is Stefan Zegmeister. He was an Austrian designer who lived in the United States of America, and he was almost 50 years old. He was alone. He didn't have children. He never married. He was successful in his career, but he didn't feel happy. And again, he decided to make a personal research what will eventually make him happy. And he decided to shoot a film dedicated to the results of this experiment, and to find out for himself what is happiness, and actually to share with others his personal conclusions. So Stefan actually was trying 3 ways to get happy. 3 ways. These are meditation, therapy, and drugs, meaning antidepressants. Not drugs like the real, but medicines. It's rather medicines. And in scale from 1 to 10, you see that is actually the picture from the film, that meditation seemed very boring for him, so no pleasure. Right? He was like at peace with himself, but he didn't feel happy because he was bored. A creative person, designer, definitely meditation and some kind of stability is not his choice. Therapy, when he was meeting with a psychiatrist, helped him a bit, 7.1, and you see that drugs, antidepressants, that was the best thing, right? Because in the scale 1 to 10, it was more than 40. But also an interesting fact that was only for a very short period of time, when he felt good while taking antidepressants, because there were many side effects that he started to struggle, and eventually he understood that he is not he anymore. He lost himself because he started to behave as if he was a different person. He met a girl with whom he was communicating probably for 1 week or 2 weeks, and he actually proposed to her under the influence of antidepressants, right? So he felt such euphoria that he had courage to propose to the girl that was actually the stranger for him. Eventually, after he stopped antidepressants, they split, definitely, because he wanted, and she was not the person he needed in his life. So it means that medicines, they create again an illusion of happiness, but that is not a real happiness. That is not what we really need for it. However, relationships, as he found out, are very important for human happiness. So connection to others and building a good relationship, that is a thing which we need to feel safe and thus to be happy. We need to work on it, definitely. However, as Stefan concludes, relationships are not enough for happiness. They are important component, however, they are not enough. The point is that along with shooting a film, he was also creating a museum of happiness, a kind of happy show, as he called that. These were installations, different like paintings and other stuff which were dedicated to happiness. And when he was doing this project, when he was creating his happy show and he was shooting his happy film, he actually realized that the project which was dedicated to the pursuit of happiness was happiness itself. So the point is that he launched these projects to find happiness, but happiness was in these projects, in working, in the work on these projects. So when we ask what is the secret component of the long-lasting happiness, what do we need, what is this secret of real happiness, actually the theory of Eudaimonism has the answer for it and gives us this, reveals to us this secret component. You know that the theory of Eudaimonism is a very old, ancient theory. It was elaborated by Aristotle, ancient Greek philosopher. However, in the contemporary world, it is a bit transformed, definitely a bit adapted to new cultural context. And still, the main idea of Eudaimonism is happiness as meaningful life. So, eudaimonia means the good life, right? So, the life which has meaning, the life which is oriented towards telos, towards the goal. Definitely, we can not very often determine, define the ultimate purpose of our lives, right? But at least the purpose of the period of our life, and it is possible to do, right? So to cognize yourself, to understand what you want to do in this life during a particular period, till a particular age, right? Then you will transform, then you will improve yourself, and you will see a perspective for the next period of time in your life. One more interesting film, which is called The Pursuit of Happiness, where the main character was, the actor of the main character was Will Smith. Probably you've seen this movie as well. That is the movie about, biographical movie about Chris Gardner. He was inventor, salesman, he was inventing different medical devices. He became later on a successful businessman, but when he was starting his project, launching his projects, and tried to convince other people that his inventions are really useful, he was struggling in very complicated circumstances. He even became homeless, and his wife divorced with him, and he was alone taking care of his son, because he actually insisted that his son stayed with him. So imagine a person who has no money, has no support, has no relationships, but he was taking care of his son. And here's the quotation that is from the movie. He says that you got a dream, you got to protect your dream. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you that you can't do it as well. You know, when they can't do it, you shouldn't do it as well. But if you want something, you get it. So it means that this goal, this purpose in life, that is a very important thing which actually can help us to overcome different struggles and difficulties in life. Because if you have a goal, if you have the meaning in this life, right, the sense of life, you know why you exist, you know what are your efforts for. In this case, you got emotional resistance. You become emotionally resistant to different stresses, by the way. And when it comes definitely to the meaning of this sense of life, right, of this purpose of life, we live definitely in the postmodern period, postmodern era, when basically we do not have any objective purposes of life, any objective values, right? Values are relative. They differ from culture to culture, from person to person. So the point is not to reveal for yourself a goal of life, a sense, a meaning of life, which is absolutely true. There are no these ethoses, right? Plato's ideas which exist somewhere in a different reality beyond this physical. And we can't reveal them. We can't reveal the absolute truth. But to formulate the meaning for yourself, to formulate the sense of your personal life, that is what each of us can do. To find, basically, to find your mission in life, right? Mission, the purpose of, or a project, a big project that you work on and that makes actually you feel significant. So basically, due to Eudaimonism, we change a bit the terms, and instead of speaking about pursuit of happiness, which is meaningless and which is useless, pursuit of happiness makes happiness unreal, illusionary, because you are trying to reach it and it escapes all the time. But Eudaimonism tells us there is happiness of pursuit. When you pursue your dream, you pursue your goal, when you work on some project, you start seeing results, you feel happy along the way. So happiness is not an emotion or not a state that you need to get, right? You need to reach. Happiness is actually a lifestyle when you pursue your dreams and you feel happy along the way. So happiness is actually a process, and this involvement in projects, well, I say big projects, you know, but big project doesn't mean something, I don't know, completely global, right? Because definitely not all of us can really become a part of some super global project. But I mean big project in our own lives. What is big in my life? What is my priority? What makes my life significant? Actually, the feeling of belonging to something bigger than yourself gives us this feeling of happiness and feeling of emotional, positive emotional attitude to things. Makes us emotionally resistant to stresses. Because if you have purpose of life, you overcome difficulties much easier than those people who do not have any meaning or any purpose. Well, there is probably some kind of problem with the program, but you understand that there is such concept which was created by Csikszentmihalyi, that is the contemporary American psychologist of the Hungarian origin, and he says that happiness is related to a concept, actually to a phenomenon. It's not only the concept, but that is a phenomenon of a flow. Flow, that is a feeling that you get while you start doing something significant and you see your growth. So flow appears when you have challenges, when you face challenges gradually, and when you gradually improve your skills. What does it mean? Flow is a process which needs these two components, challenges and improvement of skills. Because, for example, when you have too many challenges, but your skills are not enough to face these challenges, you feel scared, right? When somebody tells you you do not know how to drive a car, and somebody, I don't know, tells you go and drive, definitely it won't like help you to like driving, right? You need to improve your skills step by step, because if there are too many challenges, well, there's no happiness at all. On the other hand, when you do not improve your skills, when you do a particular work which is the same all the time, you do not feel any development, you get bored, basically. Again, you are not happy because you feel that you actually you get higher to the higher level already, and this kind of activity, this kind of work doesn't bring you any satisfaction, any pleasure. But when you improve your skills and face new challenges step by step, basically you get this flow, you get this involvement in activity that you are doing, and you feel happiness. That is, in other words, that is passion, right? Your passion of doing something. I will answer questions in the end. We have about 10 minutes left. Okay, so that is. And so in our theory of happiness that we have elaborated and described in our book, we say that actually happiness is a lifestyle which consists in self-accomplishment. Again, there are various ways to define self-accomplishment, to define self-development, right? Because values are not the same for all people. We choose values, we choose ways of self-development, when and how we want to grow. That is individual thing. Each person decides for himself. But the point is that basically that is happiness is possible when you set priorities in your life, when you set goals for each period of your life, when you set these life landmarks, let's say, and you follow your dreams. And also we say that happiness is a complex phenomenon which cannot be restricted and cannot be reduced to any of these three levels, because actually happiness is three-dimensional. Happiness has three levels. These are biological level, social level, and spiritual level. In the sense of spiritual, I mean spirituality as not necessarily religious thing, spirituality as intellectual, creative development of a person. Well, including religiosity, but that is, again, that is individual. It depends on a person. But each of us has spiritual demands and requests. So biological level of happiness means your health, right? The feeling of your comfort biologically, right? Social level of happiness means relationships, connections to other people that we create, because other people also make us happy. When a person you love is unhappy, definitely it affects you as well, right? So each of us, we are responsible for our own happiness, but we need happy people in our life. That is important. And spiritual, that is, as I mentioned, self-accomplishment, this project of life that we need to sketch and we need to accomplish. So thank you for attention, and I will be glad to answer your questions.
Tak, bo tak jakby widzę dwa wyjątki w tej teorii, bo tutaj potrzebujemy jakiegoś celu, żeby być szczęśliwy. I być
But a
szczęśliwy.
bit slower, please,
Okay.
because I understand Polish, but
Okay.
slower. Or in English.
Więc potrzebujemy jakiegoś celu, w trakcie wykonywania którego powinniśmy być szczęśliwi. Jeśli ktoś nie ma celu, to nie może być szczęśliwy, tak?
Well, actually, yes.
Ale to wtedy może być szczęśliwy poszukując celu.
Well,
Powinien, bo wtedy będzie mu łatwiej.
well, you mean
Niż jak
that,
będzie w depresji i będzie się sobie napędzał w myśleniu, że nie ma
well,
celu.
you mean that you do not have the goal, right?
Yeah.
But you are searching for the goal,
Yes,
and this process is making you happy as well.
yes.
So, but still, you see that when you are searching for the meaning of life, right?
That's
When
your goal. Your goal.
that is
Yeah.
the goal
That's
as
what I
well.
mean. And second thing, you can be like Big Lebowski, let's say. So you don't have a goal, and you don't really need a goal, and you feel happy just being lazy doing nothing. You can be happy like that too.
Well, you see that definitely. The point is that, well, for example, when we speak about Eastern theories of happiness, or when we speak about Eastern philosophy, happiness or bliss, rather, it is some kind of peace with yourself, right?
Exactly.
So when you actually do not need many things, you do not need quite to
And
set any
external
goals.
circumstances doesn't change your state
Yes.
of happiness.
Well,
and
in
when
this,
you are depressed, you're happy too.
well, in this theory, external circumstances do not influence your happiness as well, in this sense. But well, you see that happiness is a concept which is influenced by cultural context always. So Eudaimonism that we suggest in our book, that is actually a theory for a person of Western mindset, right? Or generally for a person who has more, let's say, active attitude to life, you see?
Yeah.
Because definitely a person, for instance, can be homeless and do not even search for a job, right? Because he or she doesn't need it. So he's happy to be homeless, to live every day in a different way and do not have this kind of prediction, right? But generally, we speak generally, the need of prediction is our even biological need. You know, because
Generates more happiness.
yes,
biologically.
generally,
Yeah.
generally, because you know, even on the screen we have this percentage which shows us how long do you need to wait for downloading or something like that. This scale was actually created, it didn't exist in the very first cases, monitors. It was created in order to make people safer. You see, because when you do not have prediction for the majority of people, definitely there are exceptions and people are individual, but generally people need this prediction. They need to feel safe in order to predict, in order to have these goals, right, set these goals. So again, the theory, the contemporary Eudaimonism, I'm not claiming it to be universal or absolute. Definitely it's not absolute, but that is a theory for people of this active approach, active attitude to life.
Okay.
Here is the point.
So first of all, I want to say that I really appreciated your presentation. I liked it very much. I want to add actually two comments here. One may be related to the first question, so I want to give a bit, perhaps, neuroscientific perspective on that matter. So how I see it is like our right hemisphere is more involved into global thinking, and when we make these plans, like for example in Western culture we have these ambitious plans like I want to be a CEO, I want to do a big business, then we use this hemisphere to set those goals. And then we also think about like our current life situation and see whether our actions can give, like we project whether these actions can give these results. To be specific with this neuroanatomical structures, we use obviously frontal cortex to hold the ideas and anterior cingulate cortex to compare the life situations. And the not funny, the observation about these is the dopamine peaks that we observe in the nucleus accumbens in various situations. So when the current situation would be worse than expected, then we observe a lack of dopamine peaks. If it is better than expected, then it is higher than we would. So as in general, to address to the Big Lebowski example, Big Lebowski haven't used his right hemisphere to form long-term macro goals. So that's why when he doesn't have this comparison made by anterior cingulate cortex and PFC. So that's why he's happy. And like if monks in India also don't have goals and they are happy. So I see from the neuroscientific point that happiness, which is completely to me congruent with what you presented, is kind of expectations minus reality. And the second comment, and actually perhaps a question for what, how you would, and obviously if you can comment on that, I'll be pleased. Is there's this World Happiness Report. I'm sure you know that because you study and so basically the report asks people around the world in particular countries how they score on various happiness questions, and then the scientists correlate those scores with various factors. And I see because you mentioned that the happiness is related to this ability and kind of seeing that what is our long-term goals, that we do what we do in life has meaning. So to me, or how I would understand that meaning is something that we do that makes sense in our long term, so it's congruent with our goals. And so we see here on this report that like factors such as GDP per capita, social support, health, life expectancy, etc. Correlate as have the highest correlation with those. So what would be, how would you connect those this report with
these factors?
Yes, and also
well, definitely.
Apologies for a long.
Yes, no. Thank you very much for your comments, because actually we in our book we also speak about hormones and brain activity as very important in our feeling of happiness, and also about the United Nations World Happiness Report, because there is an index, Happy Planet Index, which is actually counted each year. In this case, you see that this Happy Planet Index has many deficiencies, because on the one hand, definitely to some extent, but again, to some extent, there is an effect of social conditions, right? Environmental conditions, our health, language, and so on and so forth, on our feeling of happiness, on the one hand. However, on the other hand, as this report shows, that in those countries which are economically developed, people do not feel happy. So basically, happiness is not quite, it depends to some extent on social circumstances, but I would rather say that that is the problem of cultural context. It is more dependent on cultural context. Why? Because, for example, the United States of America, which are considered to be a developed country, are never on the top of happiness report. These are Scandinavian countries. And why Scandinavian countries? Because the culture values in these countries are different. For example, the director of Scandinavian Institute for Happiness Research, Mike Viking, probably you've heard such personality as well. So he claims that, for instance, he says, in our Danish society, people are happy to pay taxes, and in the United States, People are not happy to pay high taxes. You see the point? So the social conditions might be the same, right? Paying high taxes, but attitude to it is different. Because in the United States of America, people are unhappy to do it, and in Scandinavian countries, as Mike Viking said in his interview, people are happy to do it because they know that they contribute to the society and they see results like infrastructure and so on and so forth, which is improved due to their taxes. So again, here I would say that social factors affect our happiness to some extent, but it is rather a question of our culture, our values, and our attitude to things. Anyway. Please?
You were telling that it's a very important culture in society, and about this paradox, like hedonic paradox, that if you're pursuing of happiness, you actually couldn't experience it. But pursuing also can be aimed at itself, so for everybody it's different. So, to me, it seems that proportionally to the level of the education, therefore consciousness, that you deciding to be happy or not being happy, like not bound yourself to some cultural thing because of globalization. And it's like if we are discussing that, we know that, so we can analyze on that and therefore elaborate and come up with the idea that it's me deciding if I'm living my life like celebrating it like a failure or like a triumph, or if I'm happy to pay taxes, if I like this country, I don't like this country, like the raising of the individual and the consciousness. And the question also I wanted to ask you, as to the expert, like back to that hedonic treadmill. If we are already on that way, like Institute of Happiness, researching happiness and things like that, still pursuing it, because the fact we are all here, we are pursuing of happiness anyway, whatever we are doing with consciousness. So there are different things, but the aim by itself is happiness. If you are continue doing things that makes you happy, goals, whatever, and to the hedonic treadmill, like if rating the happiness from 0 to 10, the majority would tend to 5, like to the middle, right? That's the defense mechanism. But if you're already on that path, you're somewhere at 7, and then you're not really feel the difference with this splash of happiness. What is your recipe on that? Excluding
because I didn't quite, when it comes to, again, pursuit of happiness, I still in this case disagree that we should pursue happiness. We pursue, what we really pursue is success, right? We are aimed at success, right? For example, when you launch a project, you want the project to be successful. But an advice is never pursue happiness, be happy. These are different things. Be happy, do not pursue. When you pursue, you will never reach it. Pursue success, pursue, wealth, pursue happy balanced relationships in a couple, pursue good family life, pursue whatever you want, right?
But that's
work on that, but
one.
that makes you happy. The process itself makes you happy. So we shouldn't focus on happiness, because as many philosophers conclude, when you focus on happiness, happiness gets far from you. When you focus on other things that brings you pleasure, you feel happy. So here is the point. Here is the problem. Happiness cannot be the goal, and there is a huge problem of the contemporary culture, postmodern culture. Sense of life is replaced by pursuit of happiness, and that is why people feel unhappy. We should search and pursue sense of life, meaning of life, and that will bring us happiness, but not vice versa. Pursuit of happiness is not the goal of life. Here is the main idea. And you said about 7 and 5, because I didn't quite get you mean that we do not quite
If you're a happy person in general, You already tried a lot of things that brings you pleasure, and therefore you are not that. You're quite resistant to the pleasures. To be honest, we are all in that.
Well, definitely,
level
the
that we-
resistance is also
So
when you get.
what to do next?
Well, you see that again. That is hedonistic approach, right? Because when you pursue pleasures, satisfaction, you get to the point when you do not feel it already. So if you have something too much, for instance, you ate too much of your favorite dish, you can have digesting problems with digestion or something like that. The same with sex and any pleasures, right? There is a particular level when your joy, your pleasure increases, then it reduces. That is biology and psychology, that is brain activity. But the point is that happiness is not an emotion, or it is the complex of everything. It's not that kind of emotion. You can't be happy more or less. You can or be happy or unhappy. Here is the point. So happiness is a kind of experience, lifelong experience, the process, because an emotion, it appears, disappears, right? You can't feel, because it depends on your hormones. So it can't be at the same level all the time. Happiness is generally an attitude and generally, how to explain, your ability to feel more positive emotions. Do you get the point, right? Meaning that not always you can be like, if I claim that I'm a happy person, it doesn't mean that I feel euphoria all the time. I'm a happy person, but sometimes I feel, tired. Sometimes I feel disappointed. Anyway, but overall, I'm a happy person because I feel purpose in my life. I feel safety in this kind of sense of meaning that I have in my life, and that is a lifelong experience. So I believe that these scales of happiness are wrong, because you can be either happy or unhappy. Scales can be for emotions, for the strength of emotions, and happiness, that is a different experience. That is actually the basis for these positive emotions to be more present in our life. Here is the point.
Thank you. I'm happy that you agree on the point that if you decide being happy or
Well,
otherwise.
that is to a huge extent, that is, you mean that decide to be, well, definitely
Yeah,
happiness.
you can choose to be happy about
Happiness-
it or not.
Yes, happiness needs awareness. Well, I mean the theory I was talking about, because we have different theories of happiness, right? But the theory of happiness I was talking about needs awareness, needs learning actually to be happy. You need to become aware and learn.
Thank you very much. I think I have to interrupt right now
Mhm.
because we're
Okay,
actually
so
running out of
after
time.
we can,
Yeah.
those questions that you would like to ask, I will be happy to answer later on.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation
Thank
and
you.
complex
Thank you.
answers.